everyone, this is a video for dividing fractions. Quick starter here on multiplying and subtracting fractions. Complete that first, then come back on for the answers. So, multiplying fractions, we can simply multiply our two top numbers together to get 3 as the numerator, multiply our two bottom numbers together to get 20 as the denominator for part A. Part B is a little bit trickier. We first have to change the mixed number here into a top-heavy fraction. So 2 times the 3 is 6, plus on the 1 gives us 7 over 3. We have to multiply that by 6 over 5. 7 times 6 will give us 42. 3 times 5 giving us 15. Now we can divide top and bottom here by 3, so we'll end up with 13 over 5 for here. Is that right? No, 14. Never mind, 14 over 5. Now we can change that into a mixed number then. 5 goes into 14 twice with the remainder 4, so we can put that over our denominator of 5. Part C, and the starter here is looking at subtracting fractions. So we have to remember first to create a common denominator with these fractions. If we do that by multiplying the two denominators, we will get 35 as our common denominator. Times the first fraction by 5, so that's then 10 over 35. The second fraction by 7 is 7 over 35. Finally, our final answer then, 10 take away 7 is 3 on the top, and 35 stays as our denominator. So 3 over 35 is the answer for C. On to dividing fractions here, and I've put this little mantra up the top. It's easy to remember those 3 words: keep, change, flip. And that tells us a little method to follow when we are faced with dividing fractions by each other, or dividing by a fraction. So each of those words applies to a section or a term in the calculation. So the keep is the first term. We keep the first term the same. So the calculation becomes 2 over 3. The change then is applied to the calculation. So we change that to a multiply. And the flip is applied to the second fraction. So we flip that upside down and make it 4 over 1. So keep the first fraction the same, change the divide to a multiply, flip the second fraction. Once we've done that process, it's easy enough then because we are using the multiplying rules. So if you were quite happy with multiplying fractions together, then the next process for dividing fractions should be okay as well. 2 times 4 gives us 8 as our numerator, 3 times 1, 3 as a denominator. Change to a mixed number, 3 goes into 8 twice with a remainder of 2 over the denominator of 3. Same process then for part B. Keep the first fraction the same, change the divide to a multiply, flip the second fraction. So that becomes 8 over 5. Again, multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom. So 3 times 8 is 24. And 5 times 7 is 35. That's our final answer for that one. Now, the way that these questions can get maybe a little bit trickier is, as we saw before, we might have to simplify our calculations at the end. So, same process to start us off. Keep the first fraction the same, change the divide to a multiply, flip the second fraction. Then we can times them. 5 times 11 is 55. 7 times 10 is 70. I can divide both of those by 5 to simplify the fraction. Remember, you must always do this step, just don't forget it, always just put it in. So we end up with 11 over 14. We can't simplify that any further, so that's our final answer. Same goes for part D. Keep the first fraction the same, change the divide to a multiply, flip the second fraction, so it's now 16 over 6. 3 times 16 is 48. And 4 times 6 is then 24. Now in this case, so let's think about what we can divide them by. Well, I would immediately see 6 here. We can divide them both by, which would give me 8 over 4. But then here I can divide both of those again by not 2 this time, but actually by 4. Once I divide both of those by 4, I get 2 over 1, which is just the same as a whole number of 2. Okay, so question D there could actually be simplified quite a lot more than our normal fractions. We've just got to watch out for those. If they can be, then they must be simplified as far as possible. Right, that gives you all the notes then for today's lessons. This is Monday's lesson. If you can go to the Teams page now, you'll have a list of questions to complete for Monday's lesson. The next questions I'm going to do are the ones for either Tuesday or a little bit later on in the week. We'll decide how Monday's lesson goes first. So the next lot of questions here are dividing mixed numbers. So we're looking at fractions, still dividing with fractions, but also with mixed numbers as well. So what we're trying to do here is, first of all, as we did with the starter, change the mixed numbers into a top-heavy fraction. You can't start dividing, or in this case multiplying as well, unless you have top-heavy fractions instead of mixed numbers. So 3.5 turns into 7 over 2, 3 times 2 plus the 1. Divide that by 2 over 5, and now we can start the division method and calculations. So this step here, the first step, was just changing the mixed number into top-heavy. Next then we apply the fractions division, so keep the first fraction, change the divide to a multiply, and flip the second fraction. 7 times 5 gives me 35, and 2 times 2 gives me 4. Change to a mixed number, 4 goes into 35, 8 times with a remainder of 3 over 4. Okay, the only difference with these questions and the ones we see in C and D as well will be that we are going to have a conversion first to top-heavy fractions. So the first one in part B, we can change 1 2/5 into 7 over 5. And then we can also change our 4 into 4 over 1. We saw that process with our multiplying fractions as well. So, applying the division process, 7 over 5, keep that the same, change the divide to a multiply, and flip the second fraction. Therefore, we are given 7 times 1, so 7 over 20 as our resulting fraction. We can't simplify it, it's not top heavy, so it can't go to a mixed number. Next one here. So first step here then is to make the 7 over 1. Again, we saw this when we were doing our multiplying fractions as well. A whole number can always be put over 1 to make it into a fraction. Apply the division process, keep the first one the same, change the divide to a multiply, and flip the second fraction. 7 times 3 is 21, that's over 1. And in this case, quite nicely, that gives us a whole number of 21 as our answer. We're always thinking of fractions as being the top number divided by the bottom number. 21 divided by 1 is simply just 21, so we don't have to leave it as a fraction. And the last one here, we've got 6 over 7 make that then 3 over 1 to create a fraction, then we can start a division process. Keep the first fraction the same, change the divide to a multiply, and flip the second fraction. 6 times 1 on the top is 6, 7 times 3 is 21, and the last thing we can do with this answer is to simplify. Both 6 and 21 can be divided by 3, so we must do that to give us 2 over 7 as our final answer. Okay, so remembering all the way back to the first slide that we saw last day, so we had all the way back up here, this method here in the green bubble. The method of keep, change, flip is the one that we apply when we have to divide fractions. Making sure, as we saw in the last examples, that we also change any mixed numbers into top-heavy fractions before we start. Okay? As usual, you will find all the information you need to know on the Teams page. Please let me know if you have any questions and do keep in touch with me.